And so Diana writes about all of this. At the time, it was Joseph McCarthy exposing all of this. And so, of course, the powers of communism went after him. And because they had and have still to this day such a grip, such a penetration, such a presence inside of our academic schools, our system of education in this country, plus media, plus Hollywood, et cetera, they've been very successful at smearing the name of a good man and a patriot, Senator Joseph McCarthy. And you see it, I'm appalled at how often now I'm seeing and hearing references to McCarthyism on, current day news broadcasts and interviews and things by people who should know better, people who should have done their homework and understood what that was. But I think this is Exhibit A for how influential yet and still, again, the continuum, not a deja vu, but a continuum, how influential the forces of communism and Marxism are in our society to this day.
I don't know if you have saw me. I did promote this book, Immersed in Red by Mike Shotwell. I actually, on the side, I do indexing of books, and I got to index this particular book. And it has the personal stories of many of the people that this author is familiar with. And he mentions Alger Hiss and many others. Because he grew up as a communist. His parents were communists. This really reveals, like you're saying, like Diana's book, how everything we've been told about McCarthyism, basically what we're being told today is, I would call it communist propaganda, the stuff they're saying against McCarthy. I get angry when I've been lied to, and that's what this really reveals. This book, like Diana's book, Diana West's book, it really reveals we're allowing our children to be lied to. The more and this other stuff that I've tried to battle is the misinformation told to our children today. But I have to say, I mean, one of the things I wanted to talk about today is we've already had a communist president. No, but I ask people this all the time. Do you know that we've had a communist president? And they look at me like, what, are you from Mars? No, we had a communist president. And we've had a lot of communism come in under tyranny of Trump and Biden. Let me just say, what we begin to see is the implementation of tyranny in communism under Trump and Biden. The communist president, that was Obama. He ran on the communist ticket. So can you give us some examples of this implementation of tyranny of communism under Trump and Biden?
Well, there is a very particularly more recently, perhaps, well-known KGB defector by the name of Yuri Bezmenov, who came to the West in 1970, a defector from the KGB. And he spent the rest of his life, he lived into the 1990s, speaking, talking, doing interviews for the American audience in particular, but the West in general, about communism and what the KGB plan was, methodical, organized plan for infiltration and domination of the West. And he laid out 4 phases of communism. The first is demoralization. The second is destabilization. Right. The third is crisis. And the fourth is called normalization. Well, demoralization took place, I think, over a very long period of time. And again, going back to the 1917 Russian Revolution and the export of communism through vehicles like the Frankfurt School that penetrated our educational system and has run rampant to the current day, with Howard Zinn history books, with critical race theory being taught, the Black Lives Matter movement, which is thoroughly Marxist, and their website, by the way, Black Lives Matter in School, Black Lives Matter at school.com, thoroughly infiltrated into our academic system. That all was the demoralization phase, which lasted some decades. And if you go to another book that I often talk about, it's called The Naked Communist, written by a former FBI agent named W. Cleon Skousen, Skousen. There is a chapter 13 in there which lists the 45 goals of communism that Skousen took from the testimony of communists and former communists before those committees we mentioned in the House and Senate back in the 50s. And he enumerated what he heard from that testimony from those communists in the 45 goals of communism. And among them are items like gain control of one or both of the US political parties, gain control of the schools, the curriculum, the teachers' unions, and also to this point that we're talking about right here, degrade the morality of the society, make obscenity and pornography commonplace and acceptable. This is all the demoralization phase, if you will. Second, that Bezmenov said, destabilization. Well, I would say that last year, 2020, with the CCP virus coming out of China, that thoroughly destabilized American society. But it gave the opportunity, here to your question, Paul, gave the opportunity to little tyrants in waiting at our municipal and state government levels to institute draconian controls on society, like lockdowns, like the destruction of the middle class businesses, small businesses, like the deprivation of education for so many of our children for months upon months, closing of the schools, closing of the playgrounds. This was the opportunity that those Marxist tyrants, Democrats, of course, in these different towns and cities and states, the destabilization that they made a use of, that they took opportunity to use to their own aggrandizement of power in those places. Many of those strictures remaining to this day, although some places are opening up. And I saw a wonderful interview, by the by, with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis last night on Mark Levin's Life, Liberty, and Levin program, how it's possible to do things successfully and differently. But to your point about tyranny, that was Bezmenov's destabilization period of time, continuing now into 2021, obviously.